You making things again, Daddy?
In this video I'm experimenting with the Robert Sorby texturing tool, combining it with the use of Milliput. It's a bit of an experiment, and as you'll see, not all went to plan, but I had a few ideas and I had a plan B. But keep watching and find out how I did it. I'm using a Boxwood bowl blank. It's Castello Boxwood and it's mounted on a wood screw chuck, and I'm just truing up the side using a 3/8 bowl gouge. Boxwood turns beautifully, and here I'm using the Robert Sorby spiralling and texturing tool, and I'm experimenting, producing different patterns and just practicing with it really, because I've not used it. But I went through several of the different cutters at several different angles until I hit on the pattern I was after. I didn't show all that because it went on a while. And here I'm just cutting away the pattern to give me a smooth canvas to start on again. I repeated this process several times until I was happy with what I was seeing. I'm just cutting it back here to get it smooth again. The next job is to true up the front face of the bowl blank, which will eventually be the underside of the bowl. I'm just doing a few pull cuts and push cuts here, just truing it up. It's really lovely to turn boxwood in, you know, it's lovely. Cuts like butter, get a beautiful finish on it. But make sure your tools are sharp as always. I've marked out a double recess line here. The bigger one is for the chuck jaws to be used in expansion mode when I reverse the bowl, and the smaller one on the inside is for me to put one of my little leather logo discs in. And I've got a smaller size logo disc for this size project. The bowl blank did start out a bit bigger, but gradually reduced it down with my experimentation. And as you'll see, I have to cut it down even further after a bit of a fail. I'm using a combination of a parting tool and a small round skew to cut this recess and create a slight undercut. I'm using the skew as a negative rake scraper, but these round skews are very versatile. I'm now using a 3/8 bowl gouge to start the shaping process, just doing a few push cuts here around the corner, removing some stock and getting the basic shape right. Take my time doing this, make sure the gouge is sharp, and here I'm refining the shape, doing a little bit of shear scraping with my bowl gouge, just smoothing off any ridges. Just keep gently doing this, making sure only the bottom flute is in contact with the wood. Bit of sanding and finishing next, using the Simon Hope sanding system. Didn't take an awful lot of sanding, I got a very good finish on this wood. And here I've turned the bowl blank round, and I'm now truing up the top of the bowl blank, just doing a push cut straight across to centre here. You'll see there's a few holes in this where originally I mounted it on a faceplate, but I got a couple of the screws bound and sheared with the impact driver, so I had to revert to the worm screw, having spent ages cutting them out. And I'm just doing a bit of hollowing here using the 3/8 bowl gouge. I don't hollow it right out at this stage. I want quite a big volume of wood left to create stability for doing the patterns I want to do on the outside. Just creating the contour of the side of the bowl. It's going to be an enclosed style bowl. Doing some push cuts around. I don't know if you can see, but a beautiful cut on this wood. It really did cut nicely. A little bit of shear scraping. Bit more shear scraping, just getting rid of any ridges. Just rolling it round the edges there. A little bit more hollowing, just removing a little bit of stock here. It gives me something to get hold of while I'm putting my pattern in with the Milliput later. It was very enjoyable doing this hollowing. It just cuts so nicely. Bit more sanding now. I don't want it too smooth because I'm sticking Milliput to it. And here I'm just using a point tool to demarcate the edge of my pattern. We're just putting a couple of little grooves in just to mark out my pattern. Getting ready for the next stage. I've come in from the workshop and you can see the state of play as it is at the minute. I've got my black Milliput and I'm mixing equal quantities of the part A and part B and I'm mixing them very thoroughly. I start off by squashing them together and folding them and folding them and folding them, and once the colour is looking relatively uniform I start doing my roll and fold technique then. But to start with I just knead it and fold it, but here I start to roll it and I fold the ends in each time, roll it, fold the ends in, roll it, fold the ends in. Make sure you fold the ends and edges in each time because that's where the unmixed material will be. But I just keep rolling it and folding it. Now this rolling and folding went on for some considerable time. I've edited quite a bit of it out. And here I'm starting to squash this onto the surface of the boxwood. I had a nagging doubt in my mind as to whether this would stick. It does stick to just about anything, but when you've got the forces of the lathe and the tools on it, in hindsight I would have done something else. And if I do this technique again, I will paint a layer of slow setting epoxy resin just on the pattern area to start with. Here it is all squashed on and smoothed down, and that's all completely pressed on. Back on the lathe here, and I've already started just reducing the surface using a skew as a negative rake scraper just to create a nice smooth surface for my pattern. And I had it in my mind I was going to try and do a tyre tread effect here. I'm just preparing the surface ready for texturing. I've moved the tool rest away from the bowl now to allow space for the Robert Sorby spiralling tool, and you bring it up to cutting about midline. The lathe speed is reduced and I'm just gently working it backwards and forwards and checking my pattern, and it's looking not bad at this stage. What I'm trying to do is to cut diagonal lines through onto the boxwood underneath, and just gently cutting it, but it's beginning to fail. You get these little micro catches and it just flicks the Milliput off the boxwood. I would have probably been alright if I'd bonded it onto the boxwood. The boxwood's very tight grained and there's no key for the Milliput to bind into. I've reversed the cutter now, so it's cutting at the opposite angle to create the other diagonal effect, a sort of a knurled effect. But this is a massive fail. There's big lumps of Milliput now coming off the boxwood. You can see the big bald patches on the bowl. But it was interesting. I carried on just to see how it was. I'm cutting it all back off here to start again with plan B. I'd always had plan B in my mind, and I nearly went with plan B as plan A, if you know what I mean. But just cutting it back so the blank's even smaller now. And what I'm doing is spiralling the boxwood. Same cutting tool, same angles used. And I'm doing the first spiral going in one direction. It's looking quite good just like that, and I could achieve quite a good pattern just like that, but I was after this sort of knurled effect. And I'm just gently working this backwards and forwards, and I've set the angle and the keep it pressed down on the tool rest, and that keeps the angle the same for the entire cut. It does take a little bit of getting used to using these things, and this was the first outing for this tool, and it was a steep learning curve. I'm just gently cutting that so it's getting a bit deeper now. I've reversed the angle now so it's cutting the opposite spiral to create the knurled effect. And it's at exactly the same angle in the other direction using the graduations on the spiralling tool handle. I'm just gently going back. I think the lathe speed was a little bit too fast. I'd reduced it right down. This is speeded up footage, so it's not quite as fast as it appears, but it was still a little bit fast. I had a little bit chipping out here and there, but it didn't matter for this project. You can just see that, and a nice deep knurled pattern, which is what I was after. And here I'm using a parting tool just to define the edges of the pattern, giving it a definite border. Just doing the other side of the pattern. I could have left it like this, and it's quite a groovy pattern, but this wasn't what the experiment was about really. So Milliput time again now, and I'm getting very nervous because this is my last little piece of black Milliput. I've run out completely. I've done so many black Milliput projects lately, and I had literally just enough to go around the side of this bowl. I was sweating it a little bit. I was going to run out, but it worked out alright. I've let the Milliput set overnight, and I've cut it back and I've sanded it back so that the boxwood is beginning to show through the black Milliput. This was very enjoyable, and it was a lovely reveal. And here I'm using Yorkshire Grit to smooth the Milliput and give it a final polish. I'd sanded it to 320 and then used the Yorkshire Grit to take it up to a very fine shine. You've got at least the equivalent of 1,000 grit. I apply quite a lot of Yorkshire Grit, and I work it well backwards and forwards. It gets finer and finer, and then I finally buff it all away, and it reveals a lovely, beautiful, shiny surface. Works really well on boxwood and Milliput. Really lovely, as you can see, and the pattern it reveals is great. And here I'm doing the final bit of hollowing using a 3/8 bowl gouge, and just hollowing out and across the bottom here. Several passes. Here I'm starting to undercut the brim of the bowl, so I'm having to bring the handle of the gouge right across to the right so that I'm having the bevel going in at the right angle to create the undercut. This is the last few passes with the gouge before I start switching to scraping. I've now switched to the Robert Sorby hardwood scraper, which is a negative rake scraper, and I'm using the Robert Sorby box scraper platform to support it. This is a great little tool rest that goes right inside enclosed bowls, you know, small enclosed bowls, and for putting inside boxes so that you're fully supporting the tool. And here's my favourite thing, Yorkshire Grit. I've put a couple of coats of sanding sealer on first, then I apply loads of Yorkshire Grit, which I work into the surface. It gets finer and finer, produces a beautiful finish. I just finish by once I've got it as smooth as I want, I then buff away any remaining Yorkshire Grit in the oil, and it leaves it really fantastic. There we are, all done. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Sorry it's been a long while since I put a video out, but I've had things on every weekend. I've been away and had all sorts of other things to do, and I just haven't had time to do any wood turning or making or creating. But finally got back on the lathe last week with an experiment in using a texturing tool, which I've had for a long time, this Robert Sorby texturing tool, and I had some ideas about how to use it in conjunction with Milliput. And as you will have seen from the video, plan A went wrong. I probably will revisit that because I've worked out a way of achieving what I was originally intending, but I'm pleased with the end result. Very happy with it actually. The bowls obviously ended up a bit smaller than it should be because I had to start again and cut it all off, but yeah, it's come out really nicely. I'm very pleased with the pattern I've achieved. But that's using the Robert Sorby texturing tool with Milliput in the design. So in other words, you've got a smooth texture, if that makes sense. But there you go. It's Boxwood, Castello Boxwood, this one. Beautiful wood to turn. You get a fantastic finish on it. But it really is lovely. There's my new logo. This is the mini version of it because it's a smaller bowl. Just a little leather logo in there. There we are. And there's a few people who have already seen this because yesterday I was at the Black Dog Workshop. That's run by, or it's being set up by Martin Saban-Smith, and I'll put a link to his channel at the end of this video, but you must go and have a look at that. He's got two channels. He's got his own channel showing some great woodworking projects, wood turning projects, and he's also got the Black Dog Workshop channel, which is this new workshop that's being set up to help people suffering with depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, and wood turning is very therapeutic, and it will hopefully help a lot of people, teaching them to wood turn. So there's a big gang of us. I think there was 10 of us there yesterday, all helping Martin, and we had a great day. It was a fantastic day, really enjoyed it, really worthwhile project, and we got a lot done. You'll see some pictures and time-lapse of it on Martin's channel coming up. And I met lots of people, some I knew and some I didn't, and I saw fellow Hampshire woodturner Nick Zammit from NZ Woodturning, and I'll put a link to his channel as well. We had a good chat, and you know, we got very similar interests, so I'll put a link to his channel and you can have a look at what he does. But we had a good day, very good day, and you know, if you can support the Black Dog Workshop, do, because it's a brilliant venture that will help a lot of people, I think. But there we are. That's the finished article, and it's something I will be revisiting because I think this smooth texturing has got a lot of potential. I'd like to add a massive thank you to all my new subscribers. I'm almost at 5,000 now, and it's just incredible. I'm really thrilled with that. Thank you very much. Now, I've got more videos coming soon. There'll be another one on the next stage of the knife making project, which will be doing the leather sheath. I'm part of the way through doing that one, so that one will be posted up fairly soon. Okay, I'll see you all back in my workshop soon. Bye bye. Please like, share and subscribe, and I've got a video coming soon to celebrate the 5,000 subscriber mark when I reach it. It's going to be some form of competition. I've got an idea in mind, but keep watching and you'll see it when it comes up.
More videos coming soon.